and I understand why. But pull up the stats for Bo Nix and Jay. I think we talk about Bo Nix like he threw 18 touchdowns. He threw 29 touchdowns. Now,
And that's what I want to discuss right there. That soundbite. We talk about Bo Nix like he threw for like 18, 19 touchdowns. Like it was just a pretty good season. And not like he had the second most touchdown passes for a rookie of all time. Not like he was top 10 in total touchdowns for all quarterbacks. And it's really fascinating to me. Because the question really is why was Bo Nix so under-discussed and overlooked? You guys all know I talked about him as much as possible. I talked about all the quarterbacks. But it's so interesting to me. And I think there's a few reasons why this happened. And some understandable. But some, you gotta work a little bit harder, okay? To try to find the reality and the true stories of the NFL season. You can't just rely on other people telling you how to think and how to feel. But I mean, if we look at the last 9 weeks of the season, it's a chunk of the season, right? And we're not cooking the books here. We're not saying, well, from weeks 3 to 7, and then weeks 8 to 12, and then the final 2 weeks. It's not the story here. Just taking the last chunk of the season, literally the last 9 weeks, we're giving a rookie quarterback some grace to try to have to figure some stuff out. Just on offensive rating alone, Bo Nix was top 11 here, okay? And this would be even higher if I specifically controlled even more for completions, because then you even have someone like Penix who only played 3 games there. But for the most part, everyone else has, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, everyone else. And Penix is really the only other outlier there. And Derek Carr is an outlier, but he's beneath him, so it doesn't matter. But he's even above Jaden Daniels. So for the final 9 weeks, Bo Nix was actually higher rated than Jaden Daniels. And then if we just go to touchdowns, Bo Nix was top 3. Tied with Lamar Jackson. Just 2 touchdowns below Joe Burrow and Jared Goff in that stacked offense. Bo Nix was 21-6. And again, Lamar Jackson was 21-2. That's awesome. Joe Burrow, 23-5. Awesome. Bo Nix is right there. Absolutely right there. Passing yards, top 7. Top 7. Completion percentage, top 6. So this is real. This is real. I mean, they're relying on him to pass the ball here too. Top 7 in completions. Top 9 in attempts. Like it's you can tell that the Broncos are relying on him significantly. This is, he's top 5 in passer rating as well. And what I actually find really most impressive was his lack of sacks. Now, he obviously had an awesome O-line, and you can look at Caleb Williams, 39 sacks, but a 30.5 pressure to sack percentage. That pressure to sack percentage, as I always emphasize, is so much more heavily on the quarterback. It's when the pressure is there, what are you doing? Are you getting rid of the ball? Are you scrambling? Are you getting away from the pressure? What is the story here? And you had Caleb Williams, 39 sacks, 30.5 pressure to sack percentage. Jaden Daniels, 30 sacks, 27.8 pressure to sack percentage. You want a lower number. Okay? Bo Nix was top 10, 12.7. So when the pressure was getting to him, and now it's all up to the quarterback, what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of the ball? You're going to run? What are you going to do? He did better than the vast majority, but certainly way better than the rookie quarterbacks. He dealt with the actual pressure infinitely better. It's not even close. And that's why you can't just look at the sacks because you're like, well, he had a better O-line, and so it makes sense that he would have less sacks. But if he had a pressure to sack percentage that was in the 20s, 25, 30, what Jaden and Caleb had, then I would say, all right, that's more of a story. He took less sacks. That's more of a story of the O-line. But it's not. That's not the story here. So to see him do that is wildly impressive and shows his poise, shows his athleticism, shows his confidence. I find that incredibly impressive. And it's not like he just wasn't pressured. And this is obviously not for the whole season. We're still in the final 9 weeks. He was pressured 71 times. It's not nothing. And to try to put this in perspective, someone like Jaden Daniels was pressured, a little over, like 30 to 40 more times. But it led to another 23 sacks. Like that's a difference. That's why a pressure to sack percentage matters. Like Caleb Williams was pressured even more so, but it led to such a higher rate of sacks per pressure. And I'm okay with that with young quarterbacks, honestly. Like they're figuring stuff out. That's why these young quarterbacks are notoriously pressured nonstop, because it's like defensive coaches are banking on them just being overwhelmed and not knowing what to do in this situation. But that was not the story with Bo Nix. And he was top 10 in rushing yards for all quarterbacks. And top 7 for total touchdowns. So again, it begs the question, why was he so under-discussed? How can you have a great year and yet have someone like Colin and John Middlecoff be like, how is this so overlooked? And I think it's for a handful of reasons. First and foremost, Caleb Williams easily took the vast majority, and it's not even close. It's not even close. The vast majority of the oxygen for that rookie class. More so than Jaden Daniels. And, he was the number 1 overall pick. He was talked about, obviously, even like a year before he was even drafted. The Caleb sweepstakes. It was Caleb. The media was all in on him. Chicago being a massive market. But I kept saying this all last season. It's like we're talking more about what's going wrong for Caleb and why Caleb's not succeeding more than we're talking about, look at Bo Nix succeeding. Look at Jaden Daniels succeeding. Look at the success that these other quarterbacks are having. They'd open show. Jaden Daniels would ball out. Bo Nix would have a great game, and they would open the shows and be like, it's not working in Chicago. And it's like, okay, great. Let's talk about what's working in Washington and Denver. And you would think bringing the Denver Broncos back into the playoffs for the first time in like a decade, you think that would be big. You think that would be important. You think that would be exciting. You think that would mean something. But it just didn't. It really didn't. Like, especially more in hindsight, like the more and more I reflect on it. Because again, it's different for me because I'm going out of my way to make all this, and I'm watching all the games and really went all in on like a team like the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. And then it is kind of interesting to hear John Middlecoff talk about it, where he's like, it's we're treating him like he threw for like 18, 19 touchdowns, and it's like, yeah, that's actually a great observation. That is actually how this all unfolded. And I think Caleb is partly to blame for that. I think he's a huge part to blame for that. I think it's the fact that Jaden Daniels got off to a hotter start. He was the number 2 pick. So it was kind of like people are more talking about, should have he gone number 1? People aren't necessarily discussing Bo Nix as if he should have gone number 1. Jaden Daniels had more hype going into this season. A lot of people thought like Bo Nix isn't really that good. He's old. He's this. He's that. It was just like there was not a lot of energy. I remember when Bo Nix was first drafted, I was like, I think Bo Nix is going to be great. And it was like an avalanche of controversy. I remember talking to other people. I'm like, did Bo Nix do something that I don't understand? Like, why is Bo Nix so controversial? Like, why is he, of all people, a divisive person? I was like, I really don't know. People are talking about Auburn and this and that, and he threw so many passes at the line of scrimmage, and it was just like all stuff. It was just like, oh my gosh, like why does everyone hate Bo Nix so much? And it felt like people were so much more supportive of Penix, of JJ McCarthy, of Jaden, and only the people that were more divisive about Caleb, it was really a lot of people who were like Justin Fields fans more than anything, and people who just want to it felt like it was just people wanted to hate just for the sake of hating. At least that was my interpretation of all of the videos and comments that I was interacting with. With Bo Nix, it was just like, I don't know. It was just it was bizarre to me, honestly. Like I couldn't I still couldn't really fully make sense of it. And so then you had part of that. So now you had people who reached their conclusions. If you remember on First Things First, Mangini and Brew and Nick, they're like, look at the body language of Sean Payton. Does that really look like someone that's excited to get his quarterback? And it's like like what is this right now? And then when someone like Bo has success, it's just doesn't matter. I mean, Nick Wright said in a JJ McCarthy segment. I cut this clip, made a video about it, where he's like, if I were the Minnesota Vikings and JJ had a Bo Nick season, I would be disappointed if I were them. And it's like, you'd be disappointed with having a rookie quarterback have the second most passing touchdowns for a rookie in NFL history, have the 7 most total touchdowns in the NFL, like lead his team to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. Like, I don't, play big and huge in big important games, like against the Bengals, like against the Chiefs. It's just like, so then like, what do you need a young quarterback to do in order for you to believe in them, or to believe that you got the right guy? They have to throw for like 45 touchdowns. Like, they have to be top 5. They have to beat out the seasoned veterans. Like, it's like, I don't understand. And that's what happens when you reach a conclusion about someone before they really start playing. And then you add to the fact that it was a bit of a slower start. His first big game, I believe, was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that was like his first like real successful game against a team that's not very popular, against a team that does not have a lot of energy behind them. So it was kind of like overlooked. Whereas Jaden Daniels, his first big game was Monday Night Football, Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, and against the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. Right? Joe Burrow is obviously a blue blood in the NFL, wildly popular, wildly successful. The Bengals are a smaller market, and I'm not going to pretend like they're this big, massive team either, but it's still Joe Burrow, and it's Monday Night Football. And Jaden was spectacular in that game. I'm like, truly spectacular. And then that gave him so much momentum. And Jaden Daniels and to be very clear, like, Jaden Daniels deserves like all the hype that he gets, and all the energy and all the attention. Not enough. I think both Jaden and Bo need more attention, quite frankly. Because I see these quarterbacks as the next group of guys. We're watching Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and and Joe Burrow. Like, this is the next group. This is the next batch of those quarterbacks that we'll be watching. And it's so cool and so exciting because they're different style quarterbacks with some overlap, but like they play differently. And that's exciting to me. We're not kind of just watching like copy and paste versions of the same types of quarterbacks. Not only them head to head like a Jaden and a Bo, but then also like, Bo and Lamar and Jaden and Mahomes. Like, these are fundamentally different quarterbacks. They remind you a little bit. Like, Bo Nix reminds me a little bit of Josh Allen, but it's different. It's definitely different, which is cool, which is great. It's variety, man. And so it's like it's fascinating to me that the media wouldn't start to actually build these quarterbacks up and these teams up more. Because they're the ones that are in control of those narratives. They're the ones that are in control of why you think someone's, should be discussed. And that brings me back to Nick Wright, on First Things First, about when he said, I'll shave my head if the Denver Broncos, have a top 5 defense in the NFL or something, or a top 5 offense in the NFL or something. Like it's like the most ridiculous statement to ever make. And it was because the NFL predicted, NFL.com or whatever, like predicted that the Broncos would have a better offense than the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was just like, that's the most insane thing anyone could ever say. And it's like, why? I understand, obviously, like Nick being a Chiefs fan, I get it. But he would concede that, like, the Eagles could have a higher rated offense, that the Bills could have a higher rated offense, that the Ravens could have he can concede that. But, like, the Broncos can't. Like, they didn't have success. Like, they're not on the right track. Like, Bo Nix didn't play great. Like, Bo Nix won't be better in year 2. Like, Sean Payton isn't a great coach. It's like, I don't understand. I really don't. And so I think when you look at all this stuff together, combined with the fact that Bo Nix now is not getting as much credit for getting this team back in the playoffs, like that was not really like a crowning accomplishment that was discussed in the NFL, because even though the Broncos have been pretty much a mess for the last decade, they still had some energy behind them. They still had some, a big enough brand that carried them a little bit. They went to a couple Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl obviously with Manning, bringing in Russ and Sean Payton a couple years prior to Bo Nix. Like, there was already some of this energy and discussion that it wasn't necessarily seen as like Bo Nix just kind of resurrected this franchise in the way that Jaden Daniels did, because that team the Commanders essentially did nothing for like 30 years, like legitimately. I think what was like 94 or something. I forget exactly the timeline, but like essentially nothing. And obviously changing their name and own, like it was just a lot more of like, what do we do with this franchise? This franchise is we cannot touch this thing right here. The Broncos weren't necessarily that. They weren't necessarily that. And then there's also the obsession, obviously, with the Kansas City Chiefs and how popular that franchise is. And nobody in the media wants to be able, like, they know if you keep talking great about the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, say they're the best, no one's going to beat them, they're going to win the division, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it's good, baby. You got an army of fans. You got the Taylor Swift brigade. They all love you. Let's go. If you start saying, I don't know, man, the Broncos, they're going to be good, you're going to get an army of Chiefs fans that are like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Every Chargers video that I make, where I'm like, I think the Chargers are going to be really good, and Justin Herbert, and it's just an army of Chiefs fans who are like, yeah, every year the Chargers, and it's like, all right. Just the way they're talking, I automatically know, okay, you're a Chiefs fan. And then I can, like, and then they keep talking, and I go, oh, yep, you are a Chiefs fan. How'd I know? So then, people in the media start getting moved in that direction. They're like, let's not talk too highly about the Chargers or the Broncos or anyone. We don't want to anger the Kansas City Chiefs fans. And it kind of becomes this perfect storm to just be like, we can kind of just overlook this a little bit, whatever. And it's a disservice. It's a disservice, honestly. And yeah, I mean, I think if Bo Nix ended up winning against the Kansas City Chiefs in that first game, that could have been huge. I think, of course, obviously, if they ended up like knocking out the Buffalo Bills, like if they had a Jordan Love type moment, beating the Dallas Cowboys on the road in spectacular fashion, not to mention obviously Jaden Daniels winning on the road against the Bucs. I think if the Broncos and Bo Nix were able to have a little bit of those extra moments that were really kind of stamped the season, and they had it for a second in that opening drive against the Bills, but it obviously went nowhere. You just find yourself on the outside looking in. So yeah, but I do think there's a tremendous amount of momentum with the Denver Broncos, and Sean Payton clearly does believe in this team, and he clearly does believe in Bo Nix, and they did build a great defense. And when you do have a great defense and an up-and-coming quarterback and a great offensive head coach, it's like the floor has to be like you're right that you're gonna be within a couple games of winning the division. It's just, again, the rest is just the execution and not being on the receiving end of some of those tough losses. If anything, it's more about minimizing some tough losses rather than getting some big wins. If you minimize those random moments when you're just like, oh my God, you had that win. What was that? Like, what were you doing? You minimize that. It's like, well, then you're right there. You're right there. And that's really what I think it'll take. I think you win the division. Because even if you're great, unless you knock out the Kansas City Chiefs like in the playoffs or something, because that'll obviously speak volumes, but if you're still just a wild card team and the Chiefs win, it's still just going to be like, well, it's the Chiefs until it's not. And understandably so. But you win the division, you are planting your flag as like, yeah, we just won the division. Everyone else is catching up to us now. We passed you. And of course, if you win, even just a playoff game to me won't matter. If you get to the playoffs and you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's like, all right. I mean, maybe because it's Aaron Rodgers, it's a little bit different, but like a team of that level where people don't necessarily believe in, it's like the way how you really let everyone know you have arrived and that the future is bright. it's got to probably be right now still, and obviously this can maybe change depending on how the season unfolds. The Bills, the Ravens, or the Chiefs, and the Bengals by extension, but really those for the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs more than anything. Even if you beat the Chargers in a playoff game, people will be like, Justin Herbert can't win a playoff game. 0-3 in the playoff, right? Like it'll be more about that. It's you beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, that means something. You beat Lamar Jackson, even though he also kind of has a little bit of a playoff record issue. You're still beating the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. That will still mean something. And Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen too. So, yeah. That's how you finally get solidified into this conversation where people are no longer just being like, yeah, whatever, the Broncos, Bo Nix, Sean Payton, whatever. It's like, no. We matter again. We are a top team. We are football royalty. Come see us. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Denver Broncos and Bo Nix and the fact that people really are acting like he was just like a backup quarterback who had he had a pretty good few games. They went on a little bit of a hot streak. That was pretty cool. But they still have to draft a quarterback. You can't move forward with Gardner Minshew as your starting quarterback. It's kind of what it really did feel. Kind of like what happened with Gardner Minshew and the Colts up against C.J. Stroud and Texans final game this season. It was like, yeah, they were pretty good. It was pretty fun. It's what Shane Steichen can do even with the backup quarterback. Time to take that next step. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.